Our next speaker is Barb Haselden, and if I wanted to introduce her because what she has done has so touched my heart, and I've tried to get through it without crying. What you guys are about to see tonight is really absolutely unbelievable. How many here have ever attended a county commissioners meeting? Okay, how many have ever attended a PSTA meeting? Okay, how many have attended every single one for the last 3 years? They're pretty horrendous, aren't they? Could you imagine attending them for 3 years? Not only did Barb and Sully over here attend these meetings, they have them on tape. You know, so we have a public record of what has gone on. And I know how hard that is. And Barb has committed her life. Now, you know, guess who paid her? No one. You know, we are a volunteer group here. While the opposition will come out in the Greenlight Pinellas, and they're going to be spending a lot of money, and a lot of it's going to come from you, whether you know it or not. But this is a volunteer organization. And what Barb and Sully have been doing for the last 3 years, they've been doing on their time because they've committed their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. And Barb has done that. Barb, would you come up this side?
Okay, Regina, that's it. Thank you, everybody. I really have to say, though, this man over here, Sully, he's the workhorse. And I have not been at every single meeting, but the ones I haven't been at, I watch his videos, and we have documentation. And I like to say that we really have done an investigation. It started out as a curiosity, and then it became an obsession. And now it's become an investigation. And so what we're going to do tonight is share with you some of what we have found. This is really a high-level presentation I'm going to give you, and I'm going to move through it as quickly as I can because there's a lot of things here for you to understand. The other side is trying to say that we hate the poor people, that we want to, you know, take away their rights. We are here to protect the poor. We are here to protect the seniors. We are here to protect the taxpayers. And no, I don't trust government. So that was in the paper, and you know what? After 3 years of going to these meetings, I don't. That being said, I had a friend of mine last year that told me a story one day over a cup of coffee, and I just love this story. I told it the other day, and a few people here have heard it before because I've given the presentation to a couple of places so far, well, several places. But last year I had a friend that said she worked in the Sears stores, a store in Philadelphia, downtown Philadelphia, in the 70s. And she said, when I worked there, she said, it was the biggest theft that ever happened at the Sears store. And imagine this. 2 men came walking in off of the street. They walked right across the sales floor, down the stairs to the sporting goods department, hoisted up a 10-foot canoe over their heads, turned around, walked up the stairs, walked across the sales floor, and walked right out the door. And they never were caught, never were questioned, never were even really observed, except by a couple of people who said, well, I thought they paid for it. Because when you do something really brazen, nobody really thinks that it's what it is. So, you know, amazingly, things can go right by your face and you don't see it. But after getting as involved as we have in this, I start to see the pieces coming together. So, that being said, what happened here? I hit the button, Tim, and I'm afraid to hit anything else.
There it goes. There it goes.
Okay, but I don't have the, what? Okay, so this is our public bus system here at PSTA, and we have a great public bus system as far as, you know, the facilities and certainly it's a great system. And we have 200 buses. This is PSTA by the numbers. I never knew any of this. I thought you might be interested in it. what is the size and the scope of this agency? And it is, of course, a public agency. We pay for 75%. We subsidize it. But currently here in Pinellas County, I have a screen back here that I'm looking at, so if you wonder what I'm doing, this is easier for me. But we have 200 buses with 5,100 bus stops around town, 40 different routes, and 14 million, and as you see, I have trips in 2013. Okay? More on the numbers. And the annual budget of operations is $62 million a year. They have 584 employees. The annual mileage driving around the county is an amazing 8.5 million miles a year. And I want you to kind of think, when I look at that number, I think about tires. I think about tires and gas. The CEO's salary is $170,000 a year, and he was hired in 2011 from Des Moines Transit System. Next. The PSTA operations are 75% subsidized, as I mentioned a moment ago. And again, I just think this would be interesting for you to know because I never knew this. The federal and state grants represent 19% of their operation budget. Passenger fares are 25%. So 25% when the people get on the bus, their fares represent 25% of the cost to operate the system. Advertising, 3%, and it's interesting to note that right now about the main advertising I'm seeing on it is Greenlight Pinellas. True. And ad valorem property tax, now this is what I want you to focus on because this is what the discussion is about on Greenlight Pinellas, is 53%. 53% of the operation budget is out of ad valorem property tax, which is an entry if you own a piece of property on your taxes for your real estate. So the total of all that is 100% of their operations. But you know, PSTA is at a crossroad. Next. Do I have to say next there? Okay. And here I have a slide, and we're not going to jump in the weeds on this slide. This slide is a dramatic example of what we all experienced over the last decade. The red line is what I want you to focus on. This is a PSTA slide, and by the way, everything I'm going to show you, not everything, but most everything, is their own things that we have either PowerPoint presentation or video. So in 2002, you see the red line there. This basically gives you just a dramatic picture of what happened to our property values and what happened to the revenue to PSTA and municipalities as far as that goes. So you can see that 2007, didn't we all think we were rich in 2007? Didn't we think that our house really was worth $1 million? And that the year after that was going to be worth $1 million too? Didn't we think that? We sure did. We were all going to do a reverse mortgage and just relax and take it easy. And so did PSTA, and so did a lot of governmental agencies that operated on ad valorem, because they thought it was going to do this. But what happened? Boom, it went down. And yet, here they were up here with their budgets, right? And their spending. And so it started going down. Now this line right here, 2011 is where we are. And you can see that this right here is when PSTA raised our ad valorem taxes by 30%, trying to boost their income back up. So let's go to the next slide. Now, there's a little bit more to the story though, because in 2001, this is where their headquarters were up on 49th Street. Next. And by 2005, here's where they are today. And if you haven't seen this campus, it's on 34th Street. It is some campus. And they doubled the space and the expenses. And this again is another slide that shows the ad valorem revenue. 2007 at the high water mark at $38 million, which was that ad valorem portion of their budget. And then it started to slip. And then here again, 2012, they passed the 30% and bumped it back up to 33. Okay, next slide. So again, they raised the taxes on our homes in 2012, but still they continue to outspend their income. Next slide. This is a slide, again, here's PSTA, and this shows us in 2002 the trajectory of their spending. Oh, wait a minute, guys. Not so fast. Let's go back to this slide, because here we have 2002. Here's where the bottom fell out. So they just kind of stalled out. Here we are here. This is where now it starts to go back up. And do you know this line right here, 2014, this is where they're counting on you to pass the sales tax increase and bail them out. This is their slide. That line is their line. I didn't put that line on there. That's how sure they are that they're going to convince you to give them this sales tax increase and bail them out. Next slide. This is the same slide showing you the addition of buses and hours of service on the buses that follow this trajectory. So here we have the spending. This shows you the pattern, and there again, there's where they think that we're going to bail them out. Look at the spending continuing to go up. What if we don't pass that sales tax? Do you see this? Okay, next slide. They don't have a revenue problem, they have a spending problem. Have you noticed the empty buses? Does this look like a canoe? Because the fact are, the Pinellas bus study, one of the things that they had to do this year, I was told, and Norm, I don't know whether you can back me up on this, I was told that they had not done an actual bus study in 20 years. Am I right about that? Okay, 20 years, folks, they just continued to add buses with no study to see if they were needed. That's what, I'm sorry, that's what government does, isn't it? They just keep spending money, and if they get more money, they just keep spending it. Not efficiently, they just keep spending it, because this ought to outrage you. It outraged me. And they are saying, even in the paper, that how many people saw the story in the paper this week on Greenlight? Even in the paper this week, they're saying that I'm not telling the truth, basically, is what was said. How can it be I'm not telling the truth? I'm using their slides. This slide here is the heart of the matter, because here we have this slide. This is a bus study. They had to hire an independent bus study out of California company that came in, and for the first time, and as I said, 20 years or more, they actually evaluated their routes this year because they had to do it in preparation for trying to get federal grants. They're going to have to show, and Norm's over here saying, yes, that's right. So they're going to have to show that they had done a bus study. Here is our bus system that we are paying for, 75% subsidized, and this shows us the results that out of all of the routes, now these gray lines here are buses, right clear down here's a bus. These are trolleys. This is the Central Avenue trolley. This is the St. Pete Beach trolley. This, folks, are buses that go across to Tampa. This is where we need $1 billion bridge, right? Or haven't we been hearing about $1 billion bridge that we need? Because these people need to get over to Tampa. This is unaltered slide. The bus study woman has on here, the top 5 local routes account for 46% of the ridership, right here. And the trolley service account for 13%. Combined, these services account for nearly 60% of the system ridership. Now we have a little video. Again, I decided to play this 1-minute video or so. This is one of Sully's videos of the bus study because of the fact that they're saying that I am not telling the truth. So let's watch this video. Can you show that video, Tim?
We did a lot of work on PSTA ridership at a route and stop level. Approximately 5 routes contribute half of the total system ridership, 19, 18, 52, 4, and 59, some of PSTA's core trunk routes. Combined with the trolleys, these 5 routes and the trolleys generate 60% of system ridership. Boardings per revenue hour, services, how productive services. We have 2 top routes, which are in North County, Route 60 and 78, very productive. We also have some that are kind of at the lower end of the spectrum, under 15 passengers per hour, not carrying a lot of people for the resources.
15 riders an hour.
Central Avenue trolley is the most productive as well, of the trolleys.
go back to the slideshow? We really had this planned out that I was going to do this here, but that didn't work out. Okay, next slide. So PSTA, the new PSTA CEO Brad Miller warns that if a new sustainable funding source is not found, PSTA services will have to be cut 30% by 2016. Next slide. PSTA is at their millage cap and balancing their budget with reserves. I'm going to explain that in a second. What that means is that before that 30% tax increase I showed you on the ad valorem, they were charging us, by state law, they can charge us 0.75 millage on our property tax. We were at 0.56 before they did the 30%. Now we're at 0.7305. So they are basically at the millage cap. They did not, by the way, this is part of why I don't trust government. They didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Norm, they didn't go to 0.75 because they didn't want the media saying they were at their millage cap. It's at 0.7305, okay? They have nowhere to go here. So basically, as Miller says, they must find a new revenue source or downsize. Next slide. So again, PSTA is at a crossroad. What is the priority on their crossroad? The single most important goal of PSTA should not be the perpetuation of bloated bureaucratic system, but the delivery of service to those who need it at the lowest cost to the taxpayers. And I say policymakers have a fiduciary duty to us. We need people who focus on need to do and not want to do with our money. Not empire building, not developing real estate, also known as transit-oriented development, and not massive mission creep morphing into something that they are not. They are a bus system. At the first rail meeting we attended in December 2010, they were told to dream big. Dream big. At that transportation task force meeting that we went to in December 2010, they said dream big with our money. And that was the start of it. Next slide. Well, they dream big, all right, and this is what you're seeing all over town. This is what's going to be perpetuated all year is Greenlight Pinellas. Next slide. And here is the big idea. Next slide. I thought it would be important for you to understand the difference between high-speed rail and light rail. High-speed rail, a lot of people think that's what they're talking about. High-speed rail is the Euro-style rail, and the average speed of 155 miles per hour. What they're talking about for Pinellas County has an average speed of less than 20 miles per hour. Wait a minute, not so fast. And thank you. And in many places you see this picture, it will take part of the road. Now that's not across the board because they're also planning on running it up 275 in the median, but there's going to be places that we will lose lanes. Next slide. In order for this to happen for them, Pinellas voters must approve a massive 14% increase in Pinellas sales tax from 7 to 8%. And here's the math. The real estate property tax now is $32 million a year from our real estate, that ad valorem. All of that adds up in their budget to $32 million. The 1 cent sales tax increase will amount to $130 million a year. So this is a $100 million a year increase. PSTA gets an additional $100 million per year to spend, and the taxpayers get the highest sales tax in the state of 8%, construction for the next 10 years, clogged roads, liability for cost overruns, and failed projections. Yeah, what could go wrong? Actually, you know what? I'm so glad. Who did that? They get the prize. Because they, PSTA. Norm, you're going to love this. Do you know what I have here in my hand? The Bragg report. The Bragg report that they requested, and they never reported on the findings. Did they, Norm? This report is dated December the 9th. They voted the referendum on December the 10th because they wanted this report, and when they got the report, now I'm only speculating here, it just kind of looked that way, that when they got the report, it did not match what they had hoped, and so they didn't enter it into the records. This commissioner tried to get it entered into the records on December the 10th, and they refused to read it. Here's what it says down at the bottom. PRAG finds that the following risk factors could have negative impacts on the ability to successfully operate the program as envisioned. Number one, failure to meet ridership expectations. Think that could happen? Failure to control operating expenses. Think that could happen? Reductions in anticipated sales tax growth. Reduction in the amount and/or anticipated growth of state and federal operation grants. And right now, those grants are being cut. Next slide. Oh, I just wanted to say, go back to that. They're calling this a tax swap, and this is what we have to really be aware of, is that they're calling this a tax swap, which is the sales tax to replace the property tax. And it is an attempt to brand a $100 million tax increase as a swap. $130 million for $32 million is not a swap. Revenue neutral is a swap. A pitcher of water is not a glass of water, right? If you know, so we have to realize that this tax swap language, I think, is not. Well, let me just say it this way. I said this the other day. I'm an insurance agent, and if I sold insurance with this kind of representation, I would lose my license, because this is not very. I don't want to say more than that. Next slide. Then PSTA. This is another part you have to really understand, because it took me a while to kind of get this. And that is that if I have a job, and let's say I'm making $130,000 a year, I'll just use that as an example. 130 million, get it? So let's say I'm making $130,000 a year, and I want to go buy a $800,000 house. I'm going to go to the bank to get a mortgage, and I'm going to use my $130,000 a year income to get qualified for the mortgage, so that I can leverage my $130,000 into $800,000 worth of house. Hold that thought, because that's exactly what they're going to do with the $130 million worth of sales tax, is they're going to use that as income to bond us into $2 billion worth of debt and federal grants. That's what that $130 million does. And we, folks, will be on the hook for initially $2 billion for this first line. So I have here, by using the $130 million revenue, they will mortgage us to the federal government and bondholders for the billions it will take to build this mega project. And what is it they want to build with this? Next. Here's the rail route. Now this very map here is the map from Pinellas, from PSTA. This is the map that they are showing to everybody. And I want you to know that the day after they passed the referendum on December the 10th, that Yolanda Fernandez and the Tampa Tribune, the St. Pete Tribune, both reported in their coverage of the day's events that there was a rail link to Tampa, because this map is so misleading. I asked them repeatedly over the last year to take this off of the map, because there is no link to Tampa. Do you see that it's a broken line? We're supposed to understand that broken means it doesn't really exist. Let's see the next slide. Because this is really, this rail route is here. It's from St. Pete all the way up through our life for years and years and years, and ends in Clearwater, okay? So this link to the airport, there's no link. There's no plan in the 10-year money that is being sought to make that happen. Next slide. Also in the Greenlight Plan, bus rapid transit with dedicated lanes, which bus rapid transit can be a very good thing. There's two types of bus rapid transit, however. One is dedicated lanes that take from the cars. The other kind is shared lanes, where you share with the cars. And really that can be a good thing, because like over in Tampa, they put together a bus rapid transit, and if you get behind that, the bus driver has a way that he can hit a button and make the lights turn green. And so you can actually draft the bus and go flying right behind the bus. However, let's see the next slide. Our plan, and this is a PSTA website. This is off of the Greenlight Plan's actual website. Here's their plan. Does this look like 4th Street? This is photoshopped. Here's a stand here, and here comes the PSTA bus rapid transit. What does this say here? Bus only. So this is going to take out of our lanes. Maybe not every BRT system, but this is a picture that's on their site. And also the New Start money only pays for dedicated lanes 50%. What? Yeah. Yeah. Major, okay, and here's the roads that will be affected. They have 6 BRT and rapid bus service lanes that are planned. This is phase 1, Central Avenue, 49th Street, East Bay, Gulf to Bay, through 2018. And then phase 2, right here, 4th Street, Ormerton Road, US 19, Seminole Boulevard, 2018, and then opening in 2019. So next slide. Then another thing, PSTA promotes the message of record ridership on the buses. This was very perplexing to me when we first started, you know, like probably about a year and a half ago. I kept thinking, you know, they started reporting that there was 1 million+ rides a month on the PSTA. And I kept thinking, how can this be? There's 900,000 people in the county, and I don't even really know very many people that ride the bus. So how can it be that all these people are riding the bus? And I see all these empty buses, and so it was kind of confusing to me how that could happen. And so one day, Solly and I went to a meeting, and one of the ladies, an elderly lady, got up during her 3-minute comment time, and she was complaining that the bus, it was Bev, she was complaining that the bus was late, you know, on Tuesday morning, and she said, and I was just kind of like not paying that much attention. I was reading something, I wasn't paying much attention through that, and she said, well, you know, for me to leave my house and go to the mall, I have to leave my house and get on the bus and then transfer 2 times, and then I have to get on the bus at the mall and transfer 2 times to get back to my house, and I thought 6 rides. Bingo. So Solly and I went to a meeting, and I asked that very question of CEO Brad Miller, what I just said to you, and I said, is that 6 rides? He said yes. And I said, so theoretically, the more you break the routes up, the higher the ridership, right? And he said, yes. Next slide. So how does PSTA count bus riders? 1 rider can equal 6 rides. Next slide. The growth of PSTA buses if the 14% sales tax increase is passed. Now this over here, the blue lines are all PSTA routes, and the difference in the depth of the color is how frequently they run. However, this is what it's going to be. I think the next slide I say this, but this is going to be bus-a-rama. I mean, we're going to have so many buses that, you know, and this, by the way, is called the new revenue scenario. Isn't that politically correct? The new revenue scenario. Okay, the next slide. I call it bus-a-rama because they're talking about frequent service throughout the network enables spontaneous use. And look at this, service operating at 10 and 15-minute headways. 10-minute headways. We're going to have $600,000 buses running every 10 minutes. Next slide. This is their slide showing what the difference would be in the money existing versus if they get the referendum. See there, you know, you can see the existing. This is the bus, which is the purple. This is the rail. There it is. By the way, they keep saying it's about the bus. It's not about the bus. It's about the rail. Next slide. Oh, I love this. One of our members, Jim Lampy, found this. And this is 2010 census. Now, of course, there were multiple. I wasn't pages and pages of the 2010 census. I digress. But this is 2 questions that were Pinellas County that we pulled. Number 1 is Pinellas County, according to 2010, commuting to work. The percentage using the public transportation. So when asked, do you rely on public transportation? The answer in Pinellas County was 1.6%. Average commute time to work, 23 minutes. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. Next slide. They have no need for 2 public transit systems, bus and rail. We don't have a problem. Next slide. The choices for PSTA bus survival, and they just refuse to do it. They have the new revenue scenario, which I showed you, which was bus-a-rama, and the no new revenue scenario, existing funding sources. This is their slide. They know this is where they are, and they are going to ride this all the way to November. They are not going to make any fixes, even though they know what the answer is. Next slide. Because here is the solution, which is the no new revenue scenario, PSTA. Next slide. And that is to cut the routes by 28% now and retool to what they call the core. This was, by the way, the finding of the bus study company. Okay? Prioritize frequency on strong routes over coverage. Duh. Right? This makes sense. 6 routes at 15-minute weekday headways and 10 restructured routes discontinued. So 10 routes, or 25%, would be discontinued with a very small ridership. And of course, there's going to be some people that are dependent on those routes. There's going to be a handful of people. You know, we have to fix that. Next slide. Greatly improved number of routes with premium 15-minute waits. There's too many routes now with long waits. That's why people have to wait and wait, because they have what they call peanut butter. Very spread out with bad service. You have less routes with shorter waits. Next slide. Manage competition. I have this on here because if they can't do it, let's put this thing out to bid with the private sector and have $62 million budget out to bid. Because if they refuse to do this, if they can't do it, I want to go on the record of saying, let's put it out to bid to the private sector, offering a $62 million budget to provide bus service that is clean, reliable, safe, to the 1.6% of our neighbors who just want a ride that doesn't take them all day to get to their destination. Next slide. Because this is what we're talking about right here. We need to save the bus system for those that depend on it. This picture was in the paper 2 years ago of this family when it was cold, like it's been cold lately, and they were waiting on the bus. And I am so compelled to say, you know, that we need to help these people. And we need to do it. We have the resources, we have all of this available, and it needs to be done. If they can't do it, let's get it done privately. Next slide. This is the future. This is the future, you know. Yeah. So why do we want to even think about investing billions of dollars in 100-year-old technology? Next slide. November 2014, you'll have to make a choice. $100 million tax increase or not. Now I want to end with a little short video. I love this video. It's just a minute. You want to show that last one, which was on Tampa Bay Times, as a matter of fact, produced this last week on US 19. So let's look at what our future could look like times a million. Let's show that.
Back in 2009, officials held a groundbreaking ceremony for the reconstruction of US 19 through Clearwater and Largo. Crews would build new overpasses and frontage roads, widening and elevating the traffic-clogged road. They said construction would last through 2013. Fast forward to now. The project's end date is listed as late 2015. Construction is way behind schedule, infuriating US 19 commuters and businesses. On Friday afternoon, Governor Rick Scott announced that Florida will pay extra to fast-track the work. The Florida Department of Transportation will pay the contractor, Hubbard Construction, an extra $3.2 million for more crews and equipment so the construction can continue around the clock. Florida Department of Transportation Secretary Alnath Prasad said, if the work is done on time, the contractor will earn an additional $1.6 million in incentive. Many businesses say they're just trying.
That's good. I think we get the point. That's what we are fighting.